So, to start, uh, what led you to adapt Vladislav Raymond's novel, The Peasant, to the big screen?
So my wife is Polish.
Mhm.
She therefore had to, like everyone in Poland, read this monster novel. So, so when they're 16 years old, everyone in the country has to read it. So, and they all hate it because it's so long and so difficult to read. But she read it again in her 20s and really appreciated it then. And then when we were doing Loving Vincent, she was painting one shot and listening to the audiobook of The Peasants.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
she thought it's so painterly, the language. And actually, like the Nobel Prize Committee, when they gave him the Nobel Prize, they said the reason we're giving you the Nobel Prize is because of your poetic, painterly, incredible style of writing for the peasants. So, it's really when you read it, it's like an oil painting being described to you. It doesn't feel like real life. It feels like slightly heightened with the lights, the colors, the way that he emphasizes the beauty of nature and the vividness of like the peasant life. So she was like, "Yeah, I think this is interesting for us to do as our next feature film, because of how painterly the prose is, and also, she was wanted to find something that wasn't Loving Vincent too, but she was worried that it was too Polish. So she bought me the book, which was very difficult because it was out of print. So she had to spend like $150 buying the book from a rare antiques like place, and she gave it to me, and she didn't want to prejudice my opinion, so she didn't tell me that she wanted us to do it as a film. She was just like, Hugh, you've got to read this. But obviously if you have something like that sitting next to your bed and you're doing Loving Vincent, then it's a bit intimidating. So I didn't read it until after Loving Vincent, and she kept telling me, you have to read this book. And I read the book and I was like, oh wow, this is a painting, this could be a painting animation. It's such a incredible story because not only the style is amazing, but he manages to encapsulate in this year in the life of this peasant village everything in our kind of human existence, birth, death, marriage, infidelity, disputes with the neighbors, passion, sex, violence. It's like it's got everything in this one thing. So, and for me, yeah, I think I was also reading it and thinking, you know what, it's not so different from growing up in 1980s Britain, which is where I grew up. There were people having affairs, there were disputes between neighbors, and I wondered how long, how much have we actually changed, since the time of the peasants, how much have we really improved. And then, I think the DK really wanted to do a female story this time, and she wanted us to focus on the character of Jagna, which I also really agreed with. And I thought that, because of social media, actually this kind of trolling and lynching of people is coming back, not maybe not in a physical way like happens to Jagna, but in an online way. You're getting people being mobbed, people being censored, people being driven to like suicide or suicide attempts, and it's disproportionately it's young women. And so we felt that what happens to Jagna, the unfairness of what happens to her, the prejudice against her, is actually something that is coming out more now because of our digital world and anonymity and people being able to, attack people anonymously.
Yeah. And well, you talk a little bit about this massive book and that it's a little bit scared to watch the side. But I'm curious to know what was the process to adapt such a complex and extensive literary work into this particular animated film and
Yeah.
work together for that.
So, well, very from the beginning there were two things. Yeah, one is we decided very early on we wanted Jagna to be the main character, because in the novel she's like maybe the most important person, but there's 30 characters that are all very important. Yeah. So, but we knew we wanted it to be Jagna. And then the second thing was that we wanted to concentrate on the love, passion, jealousy quadrangle between Barina, his son Antek, Jagna, who he marries and who Antek's, having a passionate affair with, and Hanka, Antek's wife. So, and actually, like, we knew that had quite a traditional film structure, that love quadrangle, and so we knew that we were going to base it around that. And in the book there are some big subplots which we knew that we were going to just cut out immediately. So there's like a whole subplot about Russian schools, the Russian authorities trying to enforce Russian schools on the Polish village. There's a long-running feud with Germans who emigrate to and buy up land. So actually it was quite obvious to us, how to adapt it. But even then, our first script was 3 hours long. What we shot in live action was 2.5 hours, and for painting animation it needed to be under 2 hours. So that was really painful because we had to get rid of some characters and some stories that we absolutely loved. So, and very important in the book, and particularly there was one storyline of this one character, and we were in tears when we had to cut it out of the film. But the film is better for being shorter. It makes it more accessible. And in Poland, I'm interested to see what happens in Chile, but in Poland our audience was under 25. So we had 1.9 million people. We were number 3 at the box office after Barbie and Oppenheimer. It was a sensation. And the reason it was a sensation in Poland was because young people, men and women, teenagers, young adults, were going to see it not once, but 4, 5, even 10 times.
Okay.
So I think our decision to really focus on Jagna was a good one.
And also, you mentioned it that this book is really popular in Poland. So
No, the book's not popular.
No, but you said that people
have to read it.
School,
Everyone
so
has to read it because it's the school.
Yeah. And so adaptation is always hard because some people is I don't know, I read the book and it's a little bit different in the movie. What do you think the people gonna think about this movie for the adaptation?
Well, the good thing in Chile, no one's read the book, so no one's gonna care about that.
Yeah, no
and in
problem
Poland,
here, yeah.
In Poland, most people haven't read the book, even though they studied it in school. So most people loved it in Poland. 99% of the comments that we had was that they loved our film. They loved it, and many people were they wanted to go back and read the book properly, and actually in Poland they sold 20,000 new copies they sold 20,000 copies of the book last year. So people went out and bought the book because they wanted to finally read it properly, which I'm super happy about.
Nice. And talking a little bit about the work, what was the experience like co-directing the film with D.K. Welchman? I know it's not the first time, but
well, in the beginning, we were going to be writing together and she was going to be directing on her own. And it was because of COVID. I mean, we had 2 COVID stop downs, and after the second one, she couldn't direct the final part of the film. So I had to come on board as a director as well. And then it was really good. We decided after that that we were gonna, direct together again, and it's a wonderful experience for us. We love it. We actually, most of our conflicts are when we're writing the script. But once we've decided on the script, then we have a very clear connection and a clear vision. We don't have any disagreements. You know, after at that stage, it's and also there's a lot to do. An oil painting animation film is very labor intensive. It's much more complicated. It's the slowest form of filmmaking anyone's ever invented. It's much more complicated than other film processes. And so there's a lot of work. And the way that we divide up the work is DK, she's a painter, yeah? So she always is in charge of the painting animation. And I'm in charge of the sound, the music, the dancing, and I'm in charge of the we divide the VFX between us. Yeah, so we do we kind of divide that between us. So yeah, it's the most satisfying thing in my career is to work with DK. It's to work with the person I love, and we love working together is amazing.
Well, you said now that you are in charge of the music. So, what role did music play in the film, and how was it integrated with the animation?
So yeah, I mean, because we have we in the script we had 4 dances which are important for the story, you know. So the dancing was incredibly important, and the music, obviously, because if you have a dance, you need
Yeah.
music. And so it really it was part of the drama, it was part of the story, and we had to get it done very early on. And I set Luke, I wanted this score to be a mixture between a combination of Polish folk music, tribal mysticism and Slavic mysticism, which is a movement in Europe, which is like trying to imagine how music sounded 1,000 years ago, when the Vikings were here and in the Middle Ages. So you have a lot of new bands in Europe who are trying to imagine like how music was 1,000 years ago. And then obviously make it dramatic for the score. So uh, yeah, and I told you that the film was a huge hit in Poland, but the music was an even bigger hit than the film. So we had 70 million streams, and I mean, I've got the gold one there, but we already have a platinum one, but they never sent it to me yet. So the album went platinum already, and it became the music actually last year. The end credit song became the prom song in Poland. So all the kids were dancing to it for their graduation. So there's videos all over the internet of like people like dancing in their tuxedos, like to end credit song. So yeah, it was very important emotionally, and we're very proud of Luke. It was his first feature. It was his first ever film, the composer. So, and it's already the most successful soundtrack in Polish history. So he did pretty well.
Well, you talk like happy about the movie. Like I can notice that you enjoyed it, but for me to watch the movie, I think that it's like, I don't know, too much work to do, because it's not like just filming the movie. It's all this oil painting process. So I would like to know how was for you uh, the process, like personally, to create all this film for you.
Well, I mean, it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. But that was partly because of COVID and also because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine,
Mhm.
because we had a studio in Kiev. So when Russia invaded, we had to shut down our studio. We lost all our money from Ukraine, and for the last 14 months, we didn't know where the money was coming from. So yeah, I mean, this was twice as difficult to make as Loving Vincent because of the realist style, because we have like thousands of people, we have battles, we have lynchings, we have big dance scenes, we have weddings. So already we knew it was going to be twice as hard as Loving Vincent, but then because of what was happening around us, because of the war, it became 4 times as hard. And for most months after the invasion, I didn't know how we were going to pay the 200 people working for us, and 60 of those people were either refugees or living in a war zone. I didn't know at the beginning of the month how we were going to get through the end of the month, and so it was horrific. It was horrifically stressful. I was working 100 hours a week, and now I have early onset heart disease. So it was, it was impossibly difficult to make this film. But I think it's a good film. So I'm happy that we made it, but I'm not happy how hard it was to make. But that's not all just because we chose the slowest form of filmmaking. It's also because of historical circumstances out of our control.
And you and DK definitely left your mark on cinema with this unique aesthetic. However, I would like to know why you both decide to return to the amazing oil painting technique for this new film.
So, well, oil painting's been around for 600 years, and there have been incredible artists. I mean, when we think about art, probably the first thing that comes into our head is Mona Lisa or the sunflowers, So I think it's a very rich and subtle and expressive artistic medium. And it's such a shame that there's only 2 films in the world that are made with this technique. There should be 200, 2000, because you could do Picasso, you can do, which we're going to do, cave paintings. We're going to do the beginning of art, Goya, we're going to do Francisco Goya as one of our next projects. There is such a rich vein of brilliance in oil painting, and probably 60 of the 100 best artists of all time were doing oil paintings. So it's the most iconic and the people who seem to have reached the highest levels. So I think there should be more, and hopefully we will do more. And with technology changing, then maybe it's going to be less difficult year on year to make these films.
Well, Hugh, thank you very much for your time. Just to close, if you can invite to the Mundo Películas audience in Chile to watch this incredible film.
Mundo Películas. So I would love to invite all the viewers of Mundo Películas to come and see The Peasants in the cinema. I think you will see a very dark and passionate and brimming with lust and life, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much for your time, Hugh, and congratulations for this film.